December 21st, 1944, near Bastogne. Snow settles across the Ardennes in slow, measured flakes. It hides shape and distance, turning forest, road, and steel into one surface of quiet white. The air freezes breath on contact. Ice coats every exposed surface. Nothing moves. Private Daniel Harlow stands inside his M3 half-track, boots locked against the metal floor. His hands remain inside crude winter gloves, stiff leather creaking as he adjusts his grip. The mounted 57mm anti-tank gun dominates the open compartment. Cold steel. Simple mechanics. One lever between silence and ignition. His breath escapes in shallow bursts. It rises like thin exhaust, fading before it reaches the edge of his vision. He keeps his eyes forward, watching the tree line that refuses to stay still. Wind pushes snow sideways. Branches shift. Shadows change shape without warning. Orders have been repeated for days. If you must fire, aim for the hull center. Penetrate. Disable weapon systems. Do not waste shells. Behind him, the convoy forms a long, unmoving artery of war. 30 Allied trucks, each burdened with aviation fuel. Steel drums stacked under canvas, straps frozen rigid. This convoy is a lifeline. Aircraft cannot fly without fuel, and Bastogne cannot hold without aircraft. Engines idle in low rhythm, a mechanical heartbeat buried under snow. Every drop of fuel here must reach the airstrip. The system depends on it. Supplies feed aircraft. Aircraft protect infantry. Infantry holds ground. The war moves only when the machines do. A faint tremor touches the half-track's frame. Something large, something closer. He listens. A distant rumble thickens through the woods. Deep, heavy, without hurry. German armor, the kind that does not retreat. Tiger, thick armor. Long cannon, overwhelming weight. Designed to push through anything that stands ahead and ignore anything too small to matter. The order remains simple. Center mass. But Harlow's eyes track the road. Narrow. Icy. One tank could halt everything. And if one shell fails to penetrate front armor, there will not be time for a second. He studies the drift building against the roadside. He notes where the track link would pass. He considers what happens when steel loses motion. He presses one glove against the freezing barrel, feeling nothing but rigid metal. The lever waits under his thumb. He draws a slow breath. Radio static scratches through his headset. No voices, just fragments of a world wider than this forest. Each fragment demanding fuel, demanding continued motion. The convoy behind him does not speak. Drivers watch the tree line through frosted windshields, engines idling low to save fuel, men conserving words to conserve warmth. They rely on the first vehicle in line. They rely on the gun that points forward. The rumble stops. Stillness. Tracks crush frost. A shape grows between the trees. Flat plates. Armored seams. Barrel cutting through white haze. Tiger eye, close enough now to feel the weight of every turn of its turret. Harlow knows the rule. Center of the hull. Trained response. Approved target. His instinct says otherwise. Tracks first. Stop the monster. Force the war to stall here, not 50 yards behind him. He shifts his stance. The lever waits. His heartbeat slows to match the idle of engines behind him. He decides. A half second before the rules would have spoken for him. Would you have turned the barrel away from the target they trained you to hit? Before he became the man behind a gun, Private Daniel Harlow worked in a Detroit machine shop. 12 hours a day, steel sparks in darkness, turbine shafts polished until they spun without resistance. Motion refined into silence. Tolerances measured by feel, not markings. That memory remains intact. It follows him here, even in frozen Belgium, even with war pressing against the trees. He remembers the scent of machine oil warmed by labor. Familiar, controlled. Nothing like the crude cold pushing into his gloves now. He trusts mechanics more than luck. He believes in parts that fit, gears that mesh, systems that obey. The half-track beneath his boots is not transportation. It is a responsibility of metal and combustion. He knows its engine timing by the pulse through the floor. When idle runs too high, he notices. When vibrations shift under recoil, he adjusts. He cleans the 57mm anti-tank gun with the same small motions he once used for precision turbines. Straight lines, measured force, never rushing. Snow taps against the barrel. Frost creeps along the traverse housing like corrosion paused mid-growth. He wipes it away, not for shine, but to keep mechanics honest. He does not speak much during briefings. Officers explain procedures. Maps unfold. Pointers tap positions. Orders flow downward like conveyor belts feeding assembly lines. He accepts the hierarchy, but he tests each instruction quietly, the way friction tests bearings. Systems function best when stress is anticipated, not ignored. The Tiger's presence now is not a matter of fear. It is a matter of engineering. A vehicle built to move forward. A weapon designed to crush resistance by sheer mass. Its survival depends on momentum. Tracks keep that machine alive. Remove them, and armor becomes a bunker stranded on a road meant to stay open. His internal rule has existed longer than his uniform. Immobilize first, destroy later. It came from years of watching machinery fail where pressure concentrated. One weak point, one flaw exploited, and everything stops. But this rule was not taught by the Army. Military doctrine demands shells aimed center mass, the quickest path to kill. He knows why. The war machine is large. Decisions are standardized. Ammunition is counted. Lives are accounted. System over instinct. Yet instinct is built from knowledge. And knowledge demands action before theory erases opportunity. He presses his glove against the gun's mechanism. Snow melts into moisture beneath his palm. The lever waits. The half-track's engine murmurs behind him, a reminder of the convoy depending on this one choice. 30 trucks full of fuel. 30 engines that must not burn here. Aviation fuel meant for the sky, for the planes defending Bastogne, for the soldiers waiting inside that tightening ring. He adjusts the weapon's elevation by a fraction. The barrel lowers. Hull center no longer centered. Tracks. Cold breath escapes into the stillness. For a moment, war reduces to mechanics. Steel against steel. System against system. He senses the Tiger's weight pressing forward. Each rotation of the sprocket a countdown. If he listens too long to orders, he will hear the sound of those fuel drums igniting behind him. He sets his rule above theirs. Quietly. Would you trust the precision in your hands over the book they handed you? Along this narrow Ardennes road, 30 trucks form a quiet artery. Engines idle in low rhythm, exhaust drifting into cold air before vanishing. Canvas tarps stretch over steel drums, each drum filled with the same liquid that keeps aircraft aloft. Aviation fuel, the lifeblood of the front. Thunderbolts sit on a besieged airstrip miles ahead, wings dusted with snow, waiting for fuel that has not yet arrived. Their pilots ration every drop, take off only when necessary, fire only when survival demands it. Air support shrinks when fuel thins, and infantry survival shrinks with it. Victory here depends not on front lines, but on supply lines. Snow continues to fall, muting everything except engines. The convoy breathes, pistons cycle, a mechanical pulse, confidence measured not in uniforms, but in machinery that must continue moving. A single Tiger threatens all of it. One shell into the wrong drum, and fire will run under those trucks like a fuse searching for oxygen. The chain reaction would light the forest. The road. The bodies still inside vehicles that have no armor to stop heat. Harlow sees these numbers clearly. He understands how quickly fuel becomes weapon. He imagines the first drum bursting open, liquid flames sweeping beneath tires, canvas melting, steel twisting under intense combustion, the convoy disappearing from existence before anyone understands why. He also knows what a 57mm round does against Tiger frontal armor. The shell might chip paint, it might spark, but it will not stop the machine. Orders exist because histories of failed attempts demanded them. The convoy commander watches the same tree line Harlow aims toward. Snow gathers on the officer's helmet. He presses binoculars close to his face, breath trapped in glass, then lowers them again. Vision fails. The forest remains a wall of white and suspicion. No confirmation, no denial. Just waiting, silence expands. Except it is not silent. Engines mark time in repetitive strokes. Drivetrains vibrate lightly, ready to surge forward. Brakes groan as cold clamps steel. Men in the cabs rub their hands, tapping fingers against steering wheels, feeling the road's fate through thin gloves. The Tiger's approach represents more than danger. It challenges the logistics chain itself. War is not sustained by courage alone. It is sustained by packages delivered on time, supplies routed correctly, drums sealed tight, roads kept open, systems functioning regardless of weather or enemy. Harlow listens to the half-track beneath him. The idle is steady but strained from cold. Fuel gauge above half, enough to reposition if necessary, enough to flee if the convoy is lost. But he does not move. Precision requires patience. Across the column, drivers stare at the tree line through windshields blurred by frost. Their thoughts do not reach heroics. They think about ignition keys, transmission shifts, tire traction. If they must move, they will move all at once. If they must die, it may be before any wheel turns. A whisper of radio static breaks the air. No words, just noise. Then nothing. Harlow recognizes it for what it is. Not contact, interruption. Something large, something interfering. The convoy commander adjusts his stance, shoulders tight beneath winter jacket. He does not speak reassurance. He knows silence fails to calm. Harlow realigns the gun a fraction. Tracks still his target. The barrel points away from the spot officers circled on diagrams, away from approved procedure. The convoy remains the bloodstream of the front. One Tiger could sever it. One mechanic-turned-gunner could preserve it. Systems win wars, but systems require someone willing to protect them. The forest speaks before the Tiger does. High branches shift without wind. Snow falls in thin streams from the canopy. Not a drift, not a storm. A disturbance moving below the trees, pushing air in straight lines. Something large, something advancing. Unease travels faster than orders. It creeps along metal frames, through idling engines, into hands gripping frozen steering wheels. The convoy's heartbeat loses rhythm. Harlow sees geometric shapes where nature should remain irregular. Corners, plates, vertical edges behind pines that refuse to sway. The tree line is no longer only wood. It hides steel. A faint haze clings low to the ground. Exhaust pulled by cold air. The ribbon of smoke crawls forward, thin but undeniable. The sound sharpens next. Not a formation, just one set of tracks, one engine. Heavy strokes timed with slow confidence. Iron cleats strike frozen stone buried beneath soil, sending dull echoes down the road. Every truck in the line waits for permission to feel fear. But permission never comes. The Tiger emerges piece by piece. First the barrel, long and deliberate, clearing branches as if surveying the road before the body arrives. Then the sloped armor, coated in winter. Snow gathers in the gaps between plates, refusing to melt against thick steel designed to survive direct confrontation. It moves with the certainty of advantage. It believes American guns cannot stop it here. The math supports that belief. Harlow knows the data by heart. Front armor, too thick. Standard tactics, too late. Rules say, wait. Rules say confirm target. Rules say hull center. He listens past the roar of the approaching machine. The creak of turret gears strains through cold resistance. Turret rotation slows as temperature seals grease into stiffness. Even a giant suffers the weather. He notes that weakness, faint but real. Tracks crush ice and dig deeper into snow-packed ruts. The forest floor becomes trench beneath its weight. If the Tiger stops here, the cold may claim those tracks faster than Harlow ever could. Steel against soil, weight against winter. The barrel lifts higher. Not fired, not aimed, simply testing arc and leverage. A predator adjusting posture. Routine response. Call for artillery. Request armor support. Mark coordinates, but artillery is too far. Armor is elsewhere. Fuel and hope are all that remain on this road. Harlow scans again for flanking movement. None. Just the Tiger. Alone, but overwhelming. A single machine capable of turning this convoy into scattered flame. The convoy commander holds a radio handset tight against his ear, listening to static instead of guidance. His silence sends a message stronger than any transmission. If he had an answer, he would speak it. Snow settles on Harlow's shoulders. He exhales once, slowly. Inside the half-track, the loader watches him with quiet uncertainty. Harlow's hands stay steady. His thoughts stay mechanical. Tracks first. Always tracks. The turret on the Tiger pauses mid-turn. A slight hesitation. Ice gaining influence over machinery. Every massive system relies on smaller parts. Failure begins small. A clatter of metal behind Harlow. One of the truck drivers shifts in his seat, eyes wide through a frosted windshield. A silent question passes through the convoy. Is this moment authorized? The rules remain unchanged, but the forest, the fuel, and the facts disagree. Harlow tightens his grip on the firing lever. He can feel the weight of every truck behind him, every drum, every aircraft still grounded miles away. Sometimes survival waits for one person to disobey efficiently. Would you hold fire until permission arrives, or act before the road disappears? Harlow repeats the checklist inside his head, each instruction a barrier built to prevent mistakes. Wait until the Tiger clears the tree line. Aim center mass, fire once. Confirm penetration, fire again. Withdraw if ineffective. Procedures assume the world cooperates. Machines rarely do. He watches as the Tiger angles slightly left, lining its cannon toward the lead fuel truck. Optics flash once in morning gray, glass catching light with clinical accuracy. That moment reveals intent, not random patrol. A target selected. The convoy's destruction is now a matter of seconds measured in steel. Harlow shifts his stance, barely moving. The ground transmits vibration through his boots. Tracks compress deeper into frozen soil. Weight distribution changes, more mass forward. Shock absorbers under strain as incline rises a few degrees. Mud hardened around sprockets creates friction points the Tiger cannot ignore. He sees the machine, and machines obey constraints, no matter how thick their armor. His sergeant crouches low near the hull. A breath escapes before words. Hold. The single command stops everything. Harlow's throat tightens. Not from fear. From delay, snow continues to fall. Small particles cling to the barrel of his gun. Frost grows along edges of the mechanism. The trigger linkage feels like cold law beneath gloves. Rigid, unbending, written by someone far from this road. The Tiger's engine revs once, deeper. A mechanical growl that announces intent without hesitation. Harlow imagines fire running under trucks, canvas disintegrating, aluminum drums rupturing, aviation fuel becoming storm, drivers trapped inside cabs built for transport, not protection. Machines meant to push the war forward, becoming the spark that burns it backward. His instinct repeats quietly, mechanically, like a gear finding its tooth. Stop the tracks. Stop the threat. The The sergeant whispers again, softer than the wind. Hold. That word now feels like a barrier against physics. Harlow exhales slowly. He notes every variable. Barrel alignment, distance, wind negligible at this range, shell type, armor piercing, small hope against frontal plate. But track links remain exposed, iron teeth gripping earth, equal parts strength and vulnerability. The Tiger continues forward with slow certainty. Its turret adjusts a fraction. Cold metal resists rotation, bearings stiffened by ice. The weapon's arc drags through winter, not fluid anymore. Expensive engineering in conflict with natural condition. A misfire would reveal their position. A ricochet could invite immediate retaliation. Either outcome places fuel at risk. If he fires and fails, he disobeys orders, and men may die anyway. If he waits and fails, he obeys. And men will die understanding too late that procedure lost the race to physics. He tightens his grip. Gloves crackle. Heartbeat aligns with the idle of the half-track. Mechanics decide fate more often than medals do. Supply lines judge performance without applause. Systems survive when someone chooses action before collapse. The Tiger's cannon drops 1 inch, enough to define the target. The front truck's cab, enough to confirm this road is about to end. Harlow draws one final breath, calibrated and even. Orders keep armies organized. Instinct keeps machines alive. Something must break. He chooses which. Would you follow the voice on the radio or the laws of steel beneath your hands? The order never arrives. Harlow fires. The 57mm gun kicks back hard, steel shuddering through the half-track's frame. Snow erupts from the fender in a brief white scatter. The round cuts low across the frozen road, a dark streak against pale silence. A sharp metallic burst flashes at the Tiger's right track. Sparks scatter across winter ground, tiny bursts of orange snuffed instantly by cold. The link jerks. The machine hesitates. For the first time since appearing, the Tiger loses rhythm. Tracks grind once. Then sees, momentum becomes dead weight. The road holds the tank in place like a vice. Armor that once advanced now leans awkwardly. Its heavy front angled toward the convoy, but no longer closing distance. Inside the half-track, Harlow does not celebrate. He reloads. His loader hands the next round with steady urgency. No words exchanged. They continue the work the same way they once tuned gears. Sequence, repetition, precision. The Tiger reacts slower than expected. Turret rotation jerks left, then right, gears protesting. Someone inside searches for the source of humiliation. American doctrine never planned for this moment. A light gun stopping a heavy machine. It rejects the concept as impossible. Harlow sets his sights again. Tracks remain exposed. Broken steel folds upward. Sprocket teeth strain against frozen mud and newly deformed links. He fires a second round, another sharp recoil, another blast of snow. The second shell punches into the same wounded point. Metal folds inward. The Tiger lurches against its own mass. Engine roars, not victory, but frustration. The machine understands physics now. It tries to move. It cannot. Smoke coughs from heater vents. Exhaust thickens. The tank becomes a furnace without motion. The forest watches in stillness as a predator loses freedom 1 centimeter at a time. Harlow's breathing remains controlled. Actions automatic. He checks for a third round without awaiting instruction. His rule, immobilize first, has manifested into fact. Disobedience converted into survival. Yet no cheer rises from the convoy. No victory declared. Engines behind him continue their low idle, unsure whether to hope. The convoy commander stares forward, caught between two reactions, commendation or correction. He does not speak either. The Tiger's turret continues to scan. Its barrel points past Harlow, then across the column. It refuses defeat. Even trapped, it remains lethal. The difference now is measured in seconds, in angles, in the mechanics of turning steel that cannot turn fast enough in deep cold. Snow falls again. It lands evenly on both machines, aggressor and defender. For a moment, each becomes part of the same frozen landscape, machinery humbled by temperature and timing. The forest hides its judgment beneath white cover. Inside the half-track, Harlow steadies the gun for whatever follows. Procedure has ended. Consequence has begun. He knows the Tiger still has the ability to fire. Its cannon needs only a clear line and a heartbeat of opportunity. The convoy still waits on a knife edge. Immobilization changes variables. It does not guarantee survival, but the strategy now favors motion behind him, not weight before him. Sometimes, the first unauthorized action is the only one that matters. Static snaps through the radio, sudden and sharp. Then a voice cracks the silence. A forward scout, breath tight against the mic. Words rushed but precise. German armor. Behind the Tiger. 3, maybe 4. Waiting for breakthrough. The message confirms everything Harlow already understood in machinery terms. The Tiger was not a lone wanderer. It was a wedge meant to open the road. A clearing tool. Once American fuel began burning, the rest would flow through the gap and destroy what remained. But now, the wedge is stuck. The Panzerweifers idle somewhere behind the immobilized shield. Engines rumble with impatient power, trapped in a queue of steel. They cannot overtake. The forest corridor is too narrow. The Tiger blocks the only path forward. German voices echo between pines, muffled by distance, sharpened by tension. A debate conducted in fast words and colder air. Push on foot? Attempt to tow the Tiger? Fire blind into the road and risk exposing their own position? None of the options promise motion. None promise survival. Minutes pass with mechanical slowness. Snow keeps falling. Exhaust from the Tiger fades into still air. The great machine remains a monument of weight and failure, locked in place by 2 shells that hit where no one instructed. Finally, sound shifts. Tracks reverse. One engine, then another. Each withdrawal, a reluctant surrender to physics. The Panzer V's fall back into deeper forest, their noise thinning into distance. The argument behind the tree line becomes memory. Harlow watches for hesitation, a final change of mind, a desperate charge. None comes. The Tiger stays silent. Its crew emerges from the hatch. Figures drop to snow, weapons slung but unused. They move quickly, shoulders low, frustration hidden under urgency. They do not look back at the machine they leave behind. They vanish between trees, understanding the cold truth of weight versus mobility. No explosion follows. No ammunition set to deny capture. The machine is left standing, a crippled giant without purpose. The forest resets. Wind drags fine powder off branches. Engines behind Harlow breathe easier. Drivers in their trucks relax trembling hands against steering wheels. Relief escapes in thin vapor clouds, disappearing faster than fear arrived. Fuel remains intact. The airstrip will receive what it needs. Pilots will fly because this road stayed open. There is no cheering. There is no announcement to headquarters. This engagement will not receive a name. Harlow's sergeant finally exhales. Not relief, resignation. Procedure has been broken. The result cannot be denied. Yet the result cannot be celebrated. The convoy commander folds the radio antenna down and signals the column forward. Engines raise their idle-to-movement level. The system resumes. Harlow stares at the immobilized Tiger. Snow clings to its upper hull. Steam leaks like exhausted breath from vents. He studies the angle of the broken track, the precise point where steel surrendered to force. He does not feel pride. He feels confirmation. Machines obey rules of their own. The half-track rolls forward. The Tiger remains behind, a forgotten testament to one moment where instinct held the line that orders could not. Convoys succeed not through medals, but through motion that never stops. Would you accept being unpraised? If the system survives because you refuse to wait, by dusk, the convoy reaches a flat field cut from frozen farmland. The war continues elsewhere, but here, the engines finally stop. Exhaust settles. Metal cools. Snow mixes with thawed mud, clinging heavy to boots. A field debrief begins without ceremony. The commanding officer stands with hands behind his back. His expression belongs to a man who must translate chaos into forms and signatures. One line per event, one line per mistake. He looks at Harlow once, then returns his focus to the vehicles as though cause and effect should reveal themselves through steel rather than men. Harlow waits in silence, gloves removed, hands red from cold and recoil. On paper, the list is simple. Disobedience, unauthorized fire, ammunition spent without command. In practice, the convoy remains alive, fuel intact, mission unchanged. The officer steps toward the half-track, boots pressing ice into soil. He examines the breech of the 57mm gun, gloved fingers tracing scorch marks where shells left urgency behind. He does not ask why Harlow fired. He does not ask how. He already knows both answers conflict with established procedure. The officer closes the breech carefully. The sound clicks into the still evening like a line drawn under a sentence that will never be spoken aloud. He checks the recoil assembly, but says nothing about the Tiger now stranded miles behind them. No praise, no reprimand, just a silent accounting of a result achieved through a method not authorized. The day enters record with no annotation of why success occurred. A field log will show only numbers, trucks delivered, personnel present, ammunition remaining, no losses. The missing entry, the one that tells how this road stayed open, remains inside the minds of those who watched and those who acted. Harlow receives a single nod, not a reward, not forgiveness, just confirmation that the system recognizes function even if it cannot reward deviation. The convoy commander looks away before the moment becomes acknowledgement. The debrief ends. Men disperse to vehicles for routine checks. Destiny returns to simple tasks. Cleaning rifles, covering engines, adjusting straps over fuel drums. Duty shrinks back into maintenance. The war machine breathes through continued logistics, not celebration. Harlow climbs into his half-track. He removes frozen mud from the recoil guides using a cloth worn thin. Grease smudges darken his fingertips. The metal responds smoothly under his attention, as if nothing earlier had challenged its design. He wipes the barrel clean. He checks the linkage twice. No words needed. Tomorrow, the Tiger he stopped will be stripped by mechanics who never saw it move. They will count the broken links, inspect bent metal, calculate what force was required to hold a giant still. They will learn from the failure without knowing who caused it. Systems will improve. Convoys will keep moving. No medals required. The officer returns to his papers. Harlow returns to his maintenance. The war returns to the system that wins it. Supplies delivered on time. Night tightens around the field. Men grow quiet beside their machines. Silence reclaims authority. In logistics, victory is measured in motion that never stops. Would you accept a silent nod as the only record of a choice that kept the war alive? History records what happens, not what almost happened. Convoys arrive as scheduled. Fuel offloads to drums, then wings. Thunderbolts lift into gray sky again, engines fed by motion that never halted. Infantry holds their perimeter. Pilots trust ground crews who trust supply lines that stretch further than any one firefight. No paperwork traces the threat that vanished in the forest. No official credit travels with the column. Maps expand cleanly, showing progress without hint of where collapse nearly began. The war machine continues forward, unaware of the adjustment made by one enlisted mechanic with cold hands and sharper judgment. Harlow lies in his bunk that night. The half-track rests beside him under a tarp pulled tight, the barrel cleaned and covered. He listens to wind fracture against the walls of the field tent, but inside, the engines of the convoy sleep in synchronized silence. He understands his war is maintenance, a constant battle against friction, in metal, in orders, in doubt. Routes cleared before danger arrives, engines repaired before breakdown, ammunition ready before threat. The greatest victories are the ones no one notices. Machines carry the burden of change. Men keep the machines moving. Somewhere, scouts mark the abandoned Tiger's position for retrieval and study. Another crew will dismantle its armor, measure damaged track links, and learn how vulnerability hid beneath weight. They won't mention the gunner who saw exposed mechanics instead of invincible steel. Snow continues to fall over the impact site. The forest buries the evidence of logic applied under fire. Daylight will find only tracks, prints, and a frozen machine humbled by cold and calculation. The Tiger's failure becomes archived metal, not a memory. Orders remain the same. Convoys roll again in morning. In a different section of the line, another American gunner repeats the instructions Harlow just broke. Hull center, save ammunition. He rehearses a doctrine written from distance, by men who measured armor thickness, but not terrain or timing. Elsewhere, a young mechanic shoulders a weapon he knows better as a machine than as a symbol. He trusts torque values and load stress more than pages of printed procedure. The moment will come when he sees something the rule book did not predict. Quiet decisions, invisible until absent, protect the system that wins wars. Fuel travels farther. Engines run longer. The front holds. Victory in mechanized war belongs to those who keep machinery reliable, routes open, and consequences contained before they spread. It belongs to men who remove one threat so thousands of others can continue their work unnoticed. Harlow closes his eyes. He does not wait for acknowledgement. He does not expect retelling. He only expects another convoy. In stillness, he knows his action preserved the rhythm of war that depends on uninterrupted supply. This is the kind of contribution the archive forgets while the system remembers. A correction without headline, a prevention without witness. The trucks will move again at dawn. Would you stop one machine so an army of them could continue?